All right, so let's see. On the Maverick this year, or recently, I moved to 35s from 32s. So with that comes some weak points, and I've been kind of debating on whether to keep the ball joints and some other items as stock and just see how it goes in Tennessee this year, or whether to go ahead and pull the trigger and go ahead and replace some stuff. So I've already had this front end apart multiple times for tie rods and just other random stuff, bulkhead, gussets and whatnot. So I've been like putting off on taking everything apart again, but I think at this point I probably should. We're about 2 or 3 weeks out from Tennessee at this point, so it's now or never. In case something goes wrong, I can order it in time for it to get here. So I've got these Kryptonite ball joints, which are on the left side here, and on the right side is the stock or stock design ones. You can see the left side, these are much more heavy duty. They've been heat treated and all that stuff. You know, there's all kinds of upgrades to them. Basically, they're serviceable, so you can, you see this grease zerk up here. You can also replace the dust boot and things like that, whereas on a stock, it's like when it's shot, it's shot. So we're going to be replacing all 4, both upper and lower on both sides. And then while we're in there, we're also going to be taking the tie rods out and going ahead and bracing up the steering rack using this Black Ops steering rack support. So we're going to see how that goes. I'll get everything apart and then kind of decide how far I want to take this thing. I know it's easier if you have a second set of hands. I unfortunately do not have that. I got a few hours here without kids, so let's go ahead and get cracking. All right, car's jacked up, wheels are off. Just taking a look at everything here. Brake pads are still decent, right? That should be good for another trip. We should be all right there. I have greased these wheel bearings all around not too long ago. Not too much grease, just I know the factory likes to leave them dry. Rotors look good. I'm sure they'll be squeaky as always. Wanted to show you guys some stuff. So on this buggy, I decided against buying all new A-arms, and I bought these gussets from Dirt Freaks just because everything was so new when I bought it. I'm like, I know that these stock A-arms like to fold, you know, back here in like this spot. So the Dirt Freaks kit's really cool. Comes with like a welded gusset, and then it comes with like a taco kit that basically like reinforces that one spot that likes to fold on these stock arms. I'm sure I'll replace them at some point, but they've been great, and they've been good for Tennessee for 2 years so far. So factory ball joints, those are going to come out. Everything looks good. It's still a fairly new car, so you know, I don't see anything catastrophic. I did flip the shocks because I've got the shock tower brace. I've got like the CT Raceworks like gusset kit, and like pretty much everything on the front end has been reinforced. And then I've got the HMF like front bumper, which is like the winch bumper, and that also ties in with everything, and the S3 shock brace. So I had to rotate these out. So I've got limit straps because I don't have a front sway bar either. Took that out just for more articulation. These here are L&W tie rods. I have the radius rods in the rear. These are awesome. They have great deals on these. They're not too they don't make a lot of stuff for the Can-Ams, but the stuff that matters, the radius rods and the tie rods, they sometimes do like these package deals on these. So definitely take a look if you can. They've got these open heims, which I'm sure are going to collect some dirt and they're going to wear out over time, but those are easily replaceable. And yeah, just wanted to show you guys, everything seems to be looking good. I went ham on some grease here, but those are going to come out anyway. All right, so next up is disconnecting the shock from the upper A-arm here. I've got the shock therapy limit straps, as you can see right here. So when I pull that bolt out, the whole A-arm assembly is gonna drop down. So I like to put the jack underneath of it and just have it barely touching and resting on the lower A-arm, just to kind of like take some of the load off. I don't want that to droop or fall down too far. I want to be able to control that. That way I don't pull the axle out or anything like that. This backside here is an 18, and you can see with the shock therapy kit we have an offset like a spacer here, so I just got to keep that in mind when I'm disconnecting everything here. So let's go ahead and get that out. Okay. And really at this point, this bolt, you know, should come out. Might need to take a little bit of love to get it out. I usually just give it a few taps like this. And that could also be because I might need to lower this a little bit to take some of the pressure off of that bolt. And once you get it to a certain spot, it'll come right out. All right, so what I like to do so I don't lose things is I like to take a shock out, and I'll go ahead and throw just kind of everything back in here. Put my limit strap back on if I can. Get the spacer on. Get my limit strap back on, just to kind of hold things somewhat snug. And then what I'll do is I'll usually take this whole assembly, and I'll just use either a ratchet strap or a bungee cord, and I'll lift this up and kind of just keep it like out of the way. That way it's not in my workspace down here. So I usually take like something like a hook or something and tie it to either the mirror on the car or just up to maybe the ceiling of the garage or something, just to kind of hold it up and out of the way. Do the same thing on the other side, and we'll get back at it. All right, so one thing of note here is that there's a little, the brake line has a little mount here that drills into the stock A-arm. So if you have aftermarket, I'm not really sure if you'll have something like this, but for the stock A-arm, you just have to remove a small little bolt here, because otherwise the brake line is sitting literally right on top of the ball joint, just like this. And it's got like a little rubber keeper that kind of prevents the brake line from rubbing directly on top of the ball joint. I'm going to go ahead and do the ball joints out first. I think I can do those without taking out the tie rods. Not really sure, we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and try that first, and that way I got, you know, as much kind of holding everything together as I do these kind of one by one. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but I'd like to maybe do those first. And then once those are in and seated properly and everything looks decent, then I'll go ahead and remove the tie rods and go ahead and take care of the steering brace. All right, I'm kind of realizing that I'm going to need the room, so I am going to go ahead and remove the tie rod on this side first to give myself just a little bit of room. So we can get the tie rod kind of out of here. I'll get that kind of tied up, maybe along with the shock that I've got braced up, and we'll remove that, get that out of the way. It is a good idea probably to mark like on this tie rod where you're at if you have a good alignment right now. That way if this gets kind of knocked loose, or if something happens, you don't lose exactly where you were. So I'm actually going to mark with a paint pen like right here where the lock nut is, but I'll also mark on the threads where I'm at with a good alignment, because I know I've got a decent alignment right now, at least decent enough, and we'll go from there. And both the tie rod end here as well as the upper ball joint have a cotter pin that we're going to have to take out first, and then you can kind of shove that out and go from there. That one actually is going pretty easily, which is not usually the case. All right, so we'll go ahead and pop out this little cotter pin here, like so. And I found that it's just best to just say screw it on these. I mean, if that one actually is in decent shape, but normally they get mangled up pretty good whenever you pull them out. So I buy a kit of like all the different sizes of these. This underneath here, and I can't remember if this bolt right here is the factory bolt or whether that came with the L&W. I think it's a factory bolt. This also is an 18 for the bottom, and then a 19 up top here. So we'll take that. Just here on this too, you just got to be careful because this has its kind of its own let me get this out here. We have these washers here that allow this joint to pivot like this, and these washers go in. You can see they're kind of designed in a way that it allows this to kind of work its way around this open heim. So you just want to be careful. So I always like to put, I like to put everything kind of quasi back together. That way we know what went where and what order and what not. So I'll get that tied up with the shock here, and maybe I can even have that sit just like that. Look at that. All right, perfect. So we got the tie rod just sitting on top of the shock like that, kind of just holding itself in place. And then we'll go ahead and see if I can get you guys in a decent spot here where you can see what I'm looking at. Yep. All right, we'll go ahead and remove this this upper ball joint. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the cotter pin out of the bottom here. It is kind of close to this boot on this axle. I'm just hoping I don't have to take all that out. I really can't remember whether I did that or not. That was also a good time to kind of just take a look and see how like everything feels, you know, in the way of like a suspension travel kind of thing, like whether you have any like play or anything like that. I don't. This all feels good. These are fairly new like Sandcraft bushings in the A-arms. Everything seems to feel all right. So yep, so we'll go ahead and get cracking on the upper ball joint. This here, you can tell with the tie rod out, we got full flexibility here, so you can kind of see how all this works. And you can also feel, I mean, I don't have any play in these ball joints. Maybe because it's under stress, I'm not really sure. Like maybe, yeah, I mean, I don't feel anything, and I don't know if I would just by hand. But either way, I think it's good to go ahead and replace these stockers with some heavy duty stuff just due to the extra lateral bump load that we're gonna have on the trail. All right, let me show you what I did, guys. So I used the jack to lift up the whole A-arm assembly, or the whole assembly here, just to give myself a little bit more room, because whenever this is all the way down, this is kind of, the axle boot is pressing up against, or it's very close to this spot here. So I went ahead and took out this cotter pin, just used an open end wrench to take this upper ball joint, the nut out of here, and then just a couple taps with a hammer up underneath the upper A-arm here, just kind of taps this out. So you'll see here, this can come right out. And again, that brake line now is going to be able to be moved out of the way. So we'll go ahead and kind of lift this up so you can see what I'm talking about. That's the stock upper ball joint there. And you can see that this part right here is just tapered, and that fits perfectly down in the top hole of the knuckle here. So, you know, that's like almost like a press fit. That's why a couple taps with the hammer, that comes right out. This feels good, you know. I don't think it feels crusty or anything like that. It doesn't feel like loose. This feels good. But again, it's the stock one. I don't want to be out on the trail and have this thing go bad. So we are going to go ahead and replace it. Now the stock one, excuse me, the stock one has this snap ring here. So we're just going to use a couple, some snap ring pliers to basically put down in the holes, spread that ring apart here. Let's see if I can do that while I'm on camera, if I'm skilled enough. Boom, just like that. So that comes apart. We could set that to the side right there. And then we're going to go ahead and remove this ball joint here. Now I do have a ball joint removal press for this. So I will go ahead and whip that out and show you guys the process on that. All right, so ball joint press kind of upside down. This is always a little bit strange to me doing this, but I've only done this one other time, and it does say do not use an impact which for speed's sake, I said screw that. So here's the old ball joint. Basically this, the clip is holding, so this is upper, right? The clip is holding this thing from basically falling down, right, through the upper A-arm. And if you think about it, the pressure's constantly pushing this ball joint up against this shoulder here. So once we remove that clip, all it took was a little bit of pressure to get this sucker down and out of the upper A-arm. I probably should have put something in there that where the ball joint, I think, you know, if you're gonna reuse one of these, you wanna keep the pressure not right there dead center. You wanna keep it around the outside ring where most of the load is meant to go. But I'm not keeping these. I've got a spare set. These seem to be okay, but I'm not really gonna keep it. So I'll clean up the hole on the upper A-arm and then we'll go ahead and throw in the new ones. Luckily the new ones are a little bit different in that you can use you know, kind of an open end crescent wrench to press them in. So I don't need to use this ball joint tool. At least I don't think I do. So stand by. All right, so let me show you. Got the hole all cleaned up. Everything looks to be okay. I'll probably put like a little bit of grease in there or something like that just to make sure that it stays okay. There's a little bit of like rust in there from just sand wearing away at that. Here's the new ball joint. So this is going to be a little bit different. So instead of it pressing, I guess, down through the A-arm like the stock one did, we're going to be, you can see here a comparison between that and the stock upper. So what's going to happen is let me set this down here for you. So this right here, the dust boot actually comes completely out. So this is going to drop straight down into the A-arm upper hole, and then from the bottom we'll screw this on, and hopefully, if all goes well, I can kind of use this to, you know, to help draw the ball joint down into the A-arm, almost using it itself as a press. If I have to, I may have to kind of get it seated and get it started in there and then snug it up with that. So I'm going to do that. Hopefully I have enough room now, because I don't know if the shank is any longer, then I'm going to really run out of room to put the nut on the bottom once it's through, with the axle boot being right there, but I think we'll be okay. All right, so upper ball joint is in. I was wrong. I wouldn't be able to just press this thing in, you know, and use the threads to kind of draw it down into the A-arm. So my ball joint press did not have a kind of a shim small enough, so I had to use, if I could find it, it went somewhere. Okay, here it is. I had to use a 32 socket that fit right over on the outside lip of this Kryptonite ball joint. So it just kind of fit right over like that. And then I was able to use the ball joint press to kind of like press that in, making sure that the shim was underneath here and wasn't impeding on the threads or anything like that. So first impressions, it feels kind of like dry. Like, it's hard to describe, but it's like kind of stiff, which, hey, brand new. So maybe that's how they're supposed to feel. I'm not really sure. You know, but just compared to the stock one, just kind of like, just feels dry. This one feels like spongy, I guess. But this one just feels like I can almost like, I can like feel metal on metal contact. Now there was a little bit of what looked like some sort of moly grease or something like that that was in from the factory, but once it's all buttoned up, I'll go ahead and put the grease zerk on the top of it here, and, you know, pump it with some grease and everything like that, and then obviously cycle the suspension, see how that's gonna hold up. So, but otherwise it's great. It looks good, feels good, other than maybe a little bit of grittiness. But we'll go ahead and get the bottom threaded on here like so. The replaceable dust boot will go up underneath of it, thread that sucker on. I'll look at the packaging and see kind of what it calls for in the way of torque setting, and then we'll go from there. Moving along. All right, so upper ball joint is in. I got the dust boot snugged up. That calls for 60 foot-pounds with a 1 5/8 socket. And then the bottom piece here, so this bottom portion, you want to make sure that you get the washer on there as well. So as that ball joint sits in, you know, the knuckle itself is made out of like cast aluminum, so you definitely want to get that washer. That way this castle nut is not digging, just, you know, digging into the aluminum. And then Kryptonite provides a new cotter pin and the grease zerk that will go on the top there. Little nipple for greasing the sucker, which we'll load it up with some grease whenever we're all done. But as you can see, I'll probably have to figure something out with the brake line, because the brake line, you know, sits pretty much right where the grease zerk's gonna go on this. So we'll get this kind of buttoned up, see where everything falls. I may just have to kind of move it like on this side of it, and that probably will be just fine. But otherwise, feel good about it. Got good clearance there between the axle, and that's really kind of where it's gonna sit most of the time. And we'll go from there. I'll get the cotter pin in and we'll start cracking on the bottom. All right, upper ball joint is in and complete. Got the, here, let me turn on this light here. All right, so we got the bottom in, got the cotter pin in, we got good clearance on everything. Everything's snugged up. One thing I noticed is that if you put this brake line back to the original spot where the factory has you mount it, normally there'd be like a little rubber ring here that rides right on top of that, the upper ball joint, the stock one. But because we have this grease zerk here, right? So now you just got to be careful, because if that was on and snug, when I pull this back and forth, it can actually slip behind it. And then when I would go turn the steering wheel the other way, it actually binds that brake line. You could see that. And because I've got it loose, it would pop right over that. But it's already starting to kind of, just from a couple times of me testing that, it's already starting to kind of wear at the casing on that. So what I'm going to do is take this, go ahead and loosen this up so it's not here on the factory mounting hole. But I'm going to take this keeper here, and I'm actually going to just put it up here and kind of maybe zip tie it. There's like, there's a hole here, maybe for, I don't know what that's for, maybe a Smart Shocks mount or something like that. I don't have that option, but I'll mount it up here, kind of get it up out of the way to kind of keep that brake line up and free and clear of that. But just heads up, like that's the kind of stuff you got to look for on aftermarket stuff, because not everyone thinks about stuff like that, depending on what parts you have and whatnot, and that really would cause a problem. It would either pull that grease zerk straight out of the threads, or it would wear away at your brake line, and that would suck. So just be mindful of that. All right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the bottom ball joint now. So this is the stock is still in this. We have also a little spring clip here that I'll have to get out. And then, so what I did was I went ahead and got the control arm, or the tie rod, I'm sorry, propped up with the shock, and then I've actually got the upper A-arm, and really this whole assembly is zip tied, kind of holding up as well. My jack is now kind of down, so all I should have to do is release this bolt here that goes through the bottom ball joint, and then this will drop down, and I'll go ahead and have to press this ball joint out of the lower arm. We'll clean everything up and we'll press the new one in. All right, so for the lower ball joint on these, it's a 15, all right, and 15 on the front, 15 on the back. And just like the aftermarket side here, the way this works is with the shaft here that goes up into the knuckle here, or spindle, whatever this is called. I think it's the knuckle. Basically there's a kind of a bevel here. That bolt basically rides in this, and that's what keeps this ball joint locked in to this lower A-arm. So, you know, ball joint goes mounts into the lower A-arm. Same situations, just opposite from the top, except this bottom piece is a little more robust. I think maybe because there's just more leverage or more tension on this. And then that bolt will basically keep this sucker in. So when I back this out, I've already got the nut on the back side out. So when I back this out, this should fall down, and then I just need to remove the lower ball joint. So let's do this now. Kind of turn this a little bit. Get on here with this. All right, I'm gonna need to get and tap this out from the other side. Give me a second. All right. Just literally that bolt taps out from the back side. So once that's out, I should be able to just take this and bump this out, And there you go. So there you could see our lower ball joint, our lower stock ball joint, I should say. Now this shaft, I mean, this all looks like it's, I guess it has to be the exact same size as the aftermarket in order to fit in the knuckle and everything. But obviously this aftermarket one is more robust. It's supposed to be stronger all around, so you can kind of see that. So we'll go ahead and get this thing removed. Now I have pumped this, so you can see how loose that is, but in a, you know, that doesn't feel like there's any sort of play or any sort of, maybe a little bit of wobble at dead center, but that could be totally normal. But now I used a needle grease tool, and I literally like pumped this sucker full of grease. So I'm gonna, I may even put like too much in it. I'm not really sure, because I don't think that boat is supposed to look like that, but you can see it is just like covered. But I will say it does a pretty good job of keeping all the grease in there until like I really start squeezing on it, and then it'll kind of come out a little bit, but really not bad. All right, let me get this out. I'll go ahead and pop this clip off the bottom, use the ball joint press to press this down and out, and we will go from there. It's kind of interesting. My lower A-arm seems like it's got a little bit of, I mean, it feels good. That's good, actually. Yeah, you don't want like a bunch of play in that. And that sound, I mean, that's just from new bushings. But yeah, everything's looking good so far. Once this is done, I'll just literally do the repeat on the other side, and then I'll start cracking on the steering brace. All right, bottom ball joint, bottom stock ball joint out. Everything looks good. Cleaned up the hole a little bit. Gonna need to put maybe a little bit of grease or something in there to get the other one started. That one gave me a little bit of trouble, and I had to press and kind of readjust. I don't know if you guys could see in the time lapse that I took, but just like any other Harbor Freight special, this ball joint tool is kind of leaves a little bit to be desired. So they have a lot of different attachments, a lot of different stuff that you can use to just make it work. This time I think I just used this piece was a little bit too short, and what was happening was basically like that piece was riding up into this. Maybe I'm not using this thing right, I'm not really sure, but it gets the job done. That time I just used hand tools just because I didn't want to use the impact to get that out. It says not to use that anyway. So like I said, I'll clean this up a little bit, make it look sharp, make it look nice, and then we will get the other ball joint in. All right, bottom ball joint is in. Feels good. Just like the upper one, it feels a little bit like kind of, not gritty, it just feels a little bit like metal on metal, but there's definitely grease in there. I'm gonna mount them up, and then I'm gonna put some grease in them as well. But yeah, everything went nicely. These are nice. These are Kryptonite ball joints. This one's gonna go straight back up in here. The bolt will run right through that, right, and keep that. And we'll get it all buttoned up and go from there. Got a little wrinkle in this boot. I know that'll work its way out. I can't seem to get it to pop out on its own. But, oh, almost. All right, otherwise everything's good to go, and we will, I will report back on how it rides after this year. Thanks, guys. All right, job is all complete. Figured I'd give you guys a quick recap here. So upper ball joint here, right? Everything looks good. Oh, let me get this light on here. So everything looks good down here. Cotter pin, everything seems to be okay. Boot's good. That'll come out. The little indent will come out, and those are good. This is what the dust boot looks like on the Kryptonite rings, or the Kryptonite ball joints, sorry. Once this is fully tightened, I've got the grease fittings here in each one of the ball joints. Even the lowers come with them. So if you can see that there. Everything's been greased up. I went in and just pumped it with like an electric grease tool until I just started to see like a little bit of grease come out. I use Lucas Red and Tacky for like pretty much everything on this thing, so I've never had any issues. Everything's been snugged up, everything looks good. Same as the other side. Yeah, we'll see how they do. You know, they felt great. I told you that like during install, they kind of felt a little bit like, I guess like metal on metal or something like that, but they feel good. Like in working the suspension and the knuckle, like everything feels like it's okay. So time will tell. I will let you guys know if we have any issues in Tennessee. Like I said, we leave in like 2 or 3 weeks. It's gonna get the heck beaten out of it. I will do an update video and let you guys know if anything happens. As for the steering brace, I am gonna go ahead and conduct that as well. I'll make a video on that if anything goes south. Otherwise, I'll probably just post where I bought it from, and they have plenty of installation videos for you guys to watch if you need any more info on that. So again, thanks for watching, appreciate it, and yeah, thanks. And if you like what I put out, I guess go ahead and subscribe to it. I don't make any money off of it. I literally just do it for fun and the knowledge. So hopefully this helps someone out there. Thanks.